Dr. King came to Little Rock to talk to us about that. He was concerned because he said, you're young, you don't know anything about this. And there was no time for prep. So he said, look, why don't you take a few days, think it over, and if you can conclude at the end of that period that you love your enemy, then I think you might be able to pull this off. So ostensibly, we went off and did some thinking. You know, we 15, 16-year-old kids. To the extent that we understood love and enemies, we came back and said, oh yes, we love our enemies. So we went in, and we were as prepared as we were ever going to be. But again, for me, it was unnatural because I didn't really want to hurt anybody. So nonviolence proved to be essential. The problem with nonviolence, especially in an environment like that one, where you have people who don't understand the nuances of nonviolence, who saw us as stationary targets, things get a little funny. So we had to put up with stuff. We got beaten up, no question about it. We got kicked around and abused. I mean, anything that you can think of that one human being might do to another, they did to us. Some of that stuff shows up in some of the archival footage. You can see some of the documentaries that do some of that. It's hard to even bring it to this group because you can't often put yourself in that position to imagine how somebody would choose to do such awful things. And yet they did. They were so vicious, they literally led to one of our group getting kicked out of school, Minnie Jean Brown. Some of you know her story. The historians call it the chili incident, but if Minnie Jean were here, she would tell you it wasn't just chili. It was everything. You know, the jello, the salad, the roll, the milk. What happened was she was in the cafeteria, she'd gotten her lunch, she had her tray, she was walking to her chair, not bothering anybody, and some kid just pushed back in his chair and looked up at her with a sullen face, and she stood over him with his tray, and I could see the little wheels clicking in her brain. She's thinking, should I or should I not share my lunch with this kid? Eventually, she decided in the affirmative. She upended that tray, filled in with her lunch. The next day, somebody returned the favor and upended a tray of food on Minnie Jean. After that, Minnie Jean said, okay, that's it. She gave up nonviolence. She just abandoned belief in nonviolence and began to protect herself. She began to beat up white kids. And the school, in their infinite wisdom, decided to kick her out. Minnie Jean, they said, for your own safety and well-being, we're kicking you out of school. That was the manifest reason. But the true reason was the fact that she's beating up all these kids. After Minnie Jean was expelled, the very next day, little cards were circulated all over the campus. 1 down, 8 to go. What that did effectively was increase the pressure on the 8 of us. We had to recommit ourselves to nonviolence. And that was tough. So from February through May, it was really bad. And I say that because sometimes people want to know how long did it take for these kids to settle down and accept you, which is so optimistic. Fact is, we're still working on that. We're still working on that. So we get through that year. It's now May 1958. We're anticipating the new school year. The governor is unhappy. He's still unhappy. He's been unhappy all year, Orwell Faubus. He's just thinking, what do I do? What do I do? Finally, he comes up with a brilliant plan. I can just see it now. He's in the governor's mansion. He's tossing and turning at night on the, sweating and perspiring on the government-supported linens. And, okay, inferior quality. But in any case, he decides, I got it. I'm going to close the schools. That will keep the black kids out. If I just close all the high schools in Little Rock, that will make it impossible for black kids to desegregate my schools. And so it was decreed. The governor, he just didn't know that by closing the school to keep the black kids out, he would have to, what?
Keep the white kids out.
Yeah, you could have been the governor. He keep the white kids out too. He didn't know that. I suppose, he wasn't very bright. He was not a very bright person. That's not unusual in this country. There is no law that says to hold public office you have to have a measurable IQ.